I would like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Committee Multi-Board Meeting to order. We will go around so that each of you can have a chance to talk.
All right, I am Jacqueline McIntyre, Chair of the Templeton Advisory Committee, and I call this meeting to order.
Jeffrey Bennett, Chair of the Templeton Select Board.
And you call this meeting to order, Jeff?
We don't really have to because we're not here to vote on anything. We're just free to attend any meeting of any other board or committee. We're not here to vote on anything. We're just here to have a presentation.
A quorum is present, and so because quorum is present, then we historically have always called the meeting to order for each board that have quorum. So if you're not comfortable with that, then that's fine, we can move along, but that's how historically we've managed the meeting.
If it'll make you feel more comfortable, I'll call the select board meeting to order, but
Thank
it's
you,
not
Jeff.
required.
All right, would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and it's accessible on YouTube Live and will be made available to Templeton and Phillipston Cable Access TV following the meeting. As an additional reminder to everyone involved here, for whatever reason, when folks are watching the meeting live, they've been writing in to say that they can't hear us very well. So use your best projected drama voices, speak to the back of the room during the course of the meeting to make sure that everybody can hear us clearly. The recording, however, is fine. So we're not sure why there's the discrepancy in experiences, but if you could all humor me and use your loudest, most projected voice, that would be appreciated. Clearly, I don't have any problems with that. Okay. Our next point of order is, or next item on our agenda is the introduction of boards and members present. So I will just say who I am, my role in the board that I'm on, and we can go around. So Jennifer Smith, Chair of Narragansett Regional School District School Committee.
Heather Nimzura, Templeton, member of the school committee.
Sylvia Haley, representing Phillipston on the school committee.
Hank Mason, School Committee.
Sean Case, representing Templeton School Committee.
Jacqueline McIntyre, Chair of the Templeton Advisory Committee.
Noel Francis, Clerk of the Templeton Advisory Committee.
Liz Toth, Vice Chair of the Templeton Advisory Committee.
Candace Graves, Vice Chair, Templeton Select Board.
Tim Toth, Clerk, Templeton Select Board. Robert May, Member, Templeton Select Board.
Jeff Bennett, Chair of the Templeton Select Board.
James Ryan, Town Administrator, Town of Templeton.
Timothy Haley, member of the Phillipston Finance Committee.
Chris Caskin, Superintendent of Schools.
Emery Geister, Business Manager.
You want to introduce yourself, sis?
Susan Barney, Assistant Secretary for the school committee.
All right. So thank you, everyone, and welcome this evening. I really appreciate the time to spend here together. I know that it's, yet another meeting on everybody's calendars, but I do think it's important for us to collect and gather together and have these important discussions. So the first item on our agenda for this evening is FY26 budget updates, just a quick gut check on how things are going for this current fiscal year.
Well, as James is aware, health insurance is projected to go up very high for FY27. But on June 30th, 2025, there was a deficit that the district had of over $1 million. Mass Strategic has been telling us there's refunds coming in, there's rebates on all install loss. And every time we ask, there is no answer. Well, there is now an answer, and it is $500,000 by June 30th. So not quite sure how we're funding the whole thing. But hoping that school committee will consider using some of our E&D that we have certified right now.
Any other updates from any other boards? So next on our agenda is just budget process and timeline. So this is just a reminder for folks of meetings that have been posted since the summer, that the school committee's schedule for budget approvals. We do have our preliminary budget hearing on March 5th, 2026 at 5:30 in the Kiva. And then our core budget hearings on March 19th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. also at Kiva. So moving right along to Narragansett School District budget outlook for FY 27.
Okay. The events, for the smoke event. Okay, so going into, obviously FY 27, I just, again, I know that many of you have heard these type of definitions and things before, but for the audience who will be watching us online and others who don't know, but we are held harmless or hold harmless. Just as a reminder, MGL Chapter 70 hold harmless provision in Massachusetts ensures that school districts do not receive less state aid than the previous year, even if student enrollment declines. So as everyone knows, is that the Chapter 70 budget is mainly predicated on how many students that we have year over year. We have actually seen increases 3 out of the last 5 years. This was a year that we did not see an increase in students. So we are technically held harmless. We were 58 students less than last FY. We saw a decrease of about 34 kindergarten students over last year. So 30 of those 58 were, well, we don't know if they're kindergartners, but we saw a normally small kindergarten class. As we speak right now, we have kindergarten registration going on, pre-K and K, going on right now down at TES. Census tells us that there are 96-ish, K-aged students out there, and that fits more with the projections that we have seen in previous years. What will it bear? We'll see, but that's about the number that we're used to seeing in the census prior. So we'll have to see. So we do think, at least at this point, that it was a one-off year, and we do believe that it'd be back on track, but we'll figure it out. Just as a couple quick side notes, 229 districts were held harmless this year. That's a little over 80%. That's a lot. So it just, every year districts are held harmless. They're generally small towns, small regionals, especially us west, absolutely. Although we have bucked the trend of that last 5 years. 69 regional districts were held harmless, as it shows. This time, many urban districts were held harmless for the first time. Now, I'm not wishing, ill tidings on anyone, but we have a feeling that because some of the larger urban districts have seen or are going through the pains of held harmless, somebody might actually start doing something about it, because they are very used to large sums of money coming in, because as we remember, which we'll get to, that those multipliers, right? ELL, special education, and a low income are multipliers, right, for Chapter 70. So when you do not hit the number, it's going to drastically affect, obviously your Chapter 70 budget. So more to come on that. This is the last year of Student Opportunity Act increases. Governor Baker, a little bit before COVID, it was a 7-year, rollout. It actually ended up being 8 because they paused it 1 year. So actually, we've benefited from this in those years that we did see an increase in students, quite frankly, back-to-back years, about 4 years ago. So that's just kind of really an update in terms of FY 27. So I know that everyone is used to seeing this. The sheet, this is the Chapter 70 foundation budget sheet. Just as a reminder, foundation enrollment, and if it's too small, I can't enlarge it, but foundation enrollment is every school-aged student who lives in Phillipston or Templeton who go to a public school anywhere in Massachusetts. So if you have Johnny who goes to Gardner because he's school choice, we receive give or take, right? The foundation amount minus $5,000, okay? So this is not in seat. This is how many school age students that are living in both towns who are going to public school. So what does it not apply? What does it not count? Homeschool, private school, and private charter school, okay? All right, so we've already talked about that we saw a decrease, and we did. All right, so our foundation enrollment is 1,289 going into FY 27. It's closer. Some of the notable points that I think are very interesting. The red circle in the lower left, it shows us to have a low income group of 7. That is a percentage. It's based on percentage, and this year we're 38.89. We dropped low income students by 3.42%. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a big jump. Generally, wherever you are, whatever group you're in, you kind of hover in, like you're in between lots of times. But to drop by 3% was actually striking. And speaking with some of our local districts around here, they dropped as well. Why? We think that since there's free lunch program, and also that to identify low-income students, it's only through the SNAP process. You know, you could do the forms, but generally people are not going to do the forms if they're already getting free lunch lots of times. We think that's what it is, but we don't have a real solid answer to that. But for us, that's a pretty big drop. And so what does it do? It does, right? They're one of the multipliers. So we don't want more low-income students. That's not, we're not pining for them. But when those drop, it does affect the formula. It affects how much money. We circled in green vocational, right? Chapter 74, but vocational, you see a grand total of roughly $216,000, and that's to support the VIP program that goes to MyTech. There are 12 students, right? 6 juniors, 6 seniors, and they are calculated at the vocational rate. So what we do is we turn around and we give Monty Tech roughly $6,700 per student, right? And that's the vocational side of things, and we keep the educational portion of those monies. Here's the problem. When you're held harmless, okay, it's not really more, all right? So to put it simply, that whether that number was there or not, we would still receive the same Chapter 7 if you follow. So really, it's really part of our base if you think of it another way. So I know that, back several years, probably my first or second year here, we had a pseudo vocational program here. It was, what was the actual name of it? Horticulture. And we were held harmless. Well, when I was looking at this to prepare for the first or second budget cycle, it didn't add up. It just literally did not add up. I called the Department of Ed. They're like, yeah, you're too far and held harmless. We're not going to give you those. Okay, we show it, but we're not going to give it. We're not going to give you more than you're supposed to get. So, yeah, lessons learned. And I just when I came aboard, thankfully I had some experience around it, ready to figure some things out. So. When people ask, well, okay, what are you getting per student? And so to the lower right, when all the math is done, that's $15,592. That's the foundational budget per pupil. So the next is really the summary page. By the way, this is all in the Department of Ed. On the preliminary Chapter 70, it's all up there. If you are interested, you click on the, it's called the complete workbook, and you can get all kinds of information. But just as a point, you see that, our enrollment as I said, is down 58 students. And you see that the Chapter 70 aid is $96,000. Well, how did we get that? Is that I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago, they started to give a certain dollar amount per student that you had in your district. For a while, it was $25, then it was, it's 50, and then they sometimes think about 100, but then they lower it. So right now, if we were to get $75 per student that we have, right, in terms of foundation, that equals to about $96,000, which, in the grand scheme of things, it's money, but it's certainly not. To put it in perspective, last year we were 17 kids above the year before that. we received $561,000 in chapter 78. Right? So that just tells you that this held harmless is devastating. We were just 17 kids above the year before that. We received $500,000. Now we're 58, and of course, we're not going to get any, right? So that's why this held harmless is really, it's devastating stuff. Okay? Any questions about that? Because I saw those looks go, oh my God. Right. So something that you're used to seeing a lot is the number of enrolled students. That is the number of students that we have. But in seat, that's the orange. Blue, is foundation, right? We talked about foundation. Enrolled is how many kids we have here, whether they be school choice or they be resident. We saw a pretty sharp decline in enrollment that's normally seen in our enrollment. As we talked about ad nauseum, we have seen a steady increase, or certainly an increase. How about that since FY21? School choice. So I think it was 2 years ago. No, it was 3 years ago. We calculated when we thought we would run out of school choice fund. If you remember, this was something we presented. And because of all the factors that we're going to talk about, we talked about last year and this year, that is probably we're about 2 years ahead of schedule, quite frankly. So the good news is that we saw another decline in school choice out. That's great, right? That means they like the place. It also costs, it's not costing us as much money as the year before, or at least supposedly. But the bad news is that we now only take in 110 students. That differential is 35. That is too close. So we talked about last year, somebody asked me point blank, well, what would be where would the ideal differential be? It's around 80, 85 students, give or take. But so we're getting close to that. By the way, this is, if we wanted to fill the place, we could. We talked about that as well. It's not a matter of people not wanting to come. We just are very, very, very specific on where we place the kids because, seats, basically. So what are our challenges? Well, the fixed cost, which we're going to go into great depth here, is the rising health insurance costs, which we'll talk about a lot. The increased need of specialized service, special education has gone up with transportation and special education it needs. It is probably our number one driver when you look at just dollars, which we'll get to. The Bowmanville apartments, look, I'm not putting any numbers in this. I refuse. I really do. Like, honey, I'm not going to be the one that says, I'm not going to say a number. And they go, see, you were either right or you, whatever it is, it is. Whatever the number is going to be. What we understand, thank you, James, for working this out, because we don't know, because we'd love to know, we need to know, is that if they come in after October 1, we get no money for them. So we went back, when we were talking about foundation enrollment, right? 15,000 change per student. They come in after October 1. We don't pick that money up until the following FY. Okay, that's a problem. That's problem one. Problem two is, I joke, because it was her class or son's class. We had an incredible amount of fourth graders. I don't know what happened that year, but it was just, we were just full. It was our largest class in this district. It was unbelievable how many fourth graders, that by the way, residents.
Yeah, now seventh graders.
Now seventh graders, okay? So however they come in, I don't know. Are they gonna be elementary? Are they going to be, we don't know, but that could pose an issue depending on the number of total students, obviously, and where they may group. Held harmless, we talked all about that. That's obviously a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. And school choice, yeah. We have decreased the numbers over the last 5 years. We need to replace, people go, how do you do it? We replace the number of graduating, students who have, tried to do that school choice. We try to replace the number of school choice students who go to Montana, right? So they're here. I always pick on Gardner, he's a good friend of mine. So we have a school choice student here from Gardner. He puts in for, he wants to go to Monty Tech, and he does. Okay, so he goes to Monty Tech. Well, they paid the Monty Tech bill, Of course, we don't pay that because he's a school choice student. I try to replace him with another school choice student somewhere in the district, right? We try to stay balanced, but it's hard because the younger grades are pretty full. The salary of 9 teachers, so you hear this every year. The one thing that I do defer, we take full responsibility for everything because the day you get here, it's yours. But there were 9 teachers placed in school choice back in 2011. I can tell you right now that that is just, and by the way, insurance, but we got insurance out. Thank God, given these choices. Having nine teachers, pardon me, in school choice is not, it's just not a smart move. I'll be very candid. That is a challenge. And as these lines start to come together, that is our next biggest that's our next project. That's our next biggest issue, the way we see it, because that can go upside down. And of course, what we use school choice monies for, we generally buy all this, many supplies, we do athletic supplies, curriculum PD, so that way it doesn't come back, as something, the cost of the towns. Okay. Budget drivers. So just going back to kind of the beginning, right, is that we look at, these things very differently. This is just the monies of it. And some of this is just, I've been doing this, I think it's 15 or 18, no, more than that now, 20 years in terms of business manager or superintendent. I've never seen this high of a number in fixed costs in my life. I haven't. I worked in a bigger district prior to here. $1.5 million in fixed costs, meaning costs that we really don't have any control over. I'll get to how we try to. But when you look at some of these numbers, our employee health insurance of almost $500,000 for a district this size. Now, we're small in comparison, but that is a huge number. When you start looking at and you add them up, sped out of district tuition, again, went up, but I forget the percentage, but went up substantially. Sped transportation, that's a very large number. And that's something that is just keeps growing and generally needs some type of staff support. Not always, but at times. School choice out tuition. Well, I know someone in here is going to say, wait a minute, Cass fan. When I do the math, it doesn't come out. When I take as many school choice out kids and I multiply that by, $5,000, that's not what the number is. Someone's going to say that to me. And I'm going to say to you right back, but don't forget it. If they're a special needs student outplaced, or school choice down, that a portion of those costs are billed back to the district through circuit breaker. Okay, so when we look at the school choice sending report, right, it'll say little Chris Cassman lives in Winchendon, he's in 4th grade, and you'll see $5,500, right, for school choice. But then there's what's called a sped increment, and it might, who knows? It could be whatever. It could be literally $6,000. It could be $36,000. It could be $500. It is whatever through the circuit breaker system that people are trying to get relief for. So that's why these numbers don't exactly calculate. And also your when students school choice out to the virtual schools, that rate is higher also. Okay, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what the rate is, but it's higher than the vocation. Virtual. Thank you. The virtual schools, lost it for a minute. So when I look at the other numbers, we just look at GIC retirement assessment, they go, well, that's a lot of money. That might actually get higher. The GIC is meeting, I think, on February 12th, and those rates could, in some of the experts think they are going to go up. So when they go up, right, everything is based on the GIC. You can't surpass it, in terms of what they offer, but you can, so if those go up, that could absolutely be a problem. And just, as an aside, when you look at the UFCW retiree health insurance, is that the 60%, correct?
60.
Yes, 63% went up. Their cost, the cost of itself went up 63% for the retirees. That is just unheard of. I really do believe that. So in all total, you're looking at just hard costs, and what do we do to try to mitigate that? Well, we're doing everything with insurance. We're trying to figure out, do we do this? Do we do that? Working with, maybe get into another group. We're working hard on that. The special education, portion of these fixed costs, we don't have a multitude of programs here, like we don't have, a lot of programs, but we are very specifically targeting programs to keep these, as many kids as we can in the district, right? So you've heard me talk about Thrive in the high school before, talk about that. We're gonna have to look at something down at the elementary school because we are seeing students, they're just, right now, they're just not meeting success within the public sector, the public schools. And so we need to create some opportunities that if, those kiddos who can, to modify, their educational environment. So, oops, go back to something. So, okay, so when we start looking at what, the chart of accounts, of how we, again, everything is different to account codes. When we start talking about what the minimal increase is here, we start talking about like, okay, what is each section going to, what account looks, what it's really over, it's all over. I mean, tuition and others, that's 35.96. That's out of district school choice charter. That's a lot. I don't know that we've had an increase that high. I could check, but I don't know that we've had that high in such a long time. Again, you can see what the increases are and in general, what accounts they cover. When you see debt, oh my God, what do you mean? That's actually for the roof, right? Initially, we have to pick up the short-term round of interest for that. So we have to add that into our expenditure sheets there. And so you can look at this decrease of, a $3.2 million, I'm rounding. I'd like to round down, but I'm not. That's what it looks like to an increase from year over year. Just as an aside, we talked about the insurance. So we, last year, the school committee voted, we received a $400,000 return from our old insurance group for claims that, that they held for it. They didn't need to be paid. So we put that towards E&D. We had $800,000 in essence ready to go towards the budget, right? Because we generally, whatever we have in E&D, we've put towards whatever budget season that is, budget year. The school committee is going to, either at the next meeting, I'm going to have to make the decision to take at least, we recommend at least 300,000 of that to satisfy really the insurance group. So because we do need to pay, well, you guys know, we've had this conversation already, so you're very aware of what we have the same folks, right? So we're in the same boat. People say, well, how did that happen? We've had large claims this year. People get sick. People need care. There's no other way to put it. And that's how it goes. And that's what has driven these increases, I think, for everybody. So, okay. Never in a day have you ever seen a not possible for towns sticker or whatever you want to call that on this. So never, because when we just calculate out at a 2.5 or what we call the minimum, 2.5 for, well, that's not the minimum, sorry. What would it be just for level service? Thank you. You're looking at, these numbers are just, they're just ridiculous, okay? And so we know that. So obviously, given all of that, it was just not possible, right? And I mean, of course, you'll have all this information too. When we took what we call the minimum increase, which is 2.5 for Templeton, ends up being 4.87 for Phillipston, how it all works out. You're talking about a cuts that I'm going to get into in a minute here, but that would just not be possible for the district at all. And I'm going to go into that more, in this next couple of slides here.
So before you go on, I just want to make sure everybody followed that, because really we were trying to figure out, brainstorming about like what budget do we present at this meeting? Because usually, historically, we've had some idea of here's the budget we're recommending to the towns. And so I want to set the preface before we go into these next slides, that this is a little bit of a different presentation from us, because we are sitting here and we are recognizing that level service budget is not a feasible plan for anyone. And yet we also need to communicate very clearly that the minimal budget increase is not feasible for the district. It would effectively shut us down. And so we need to work collaborate very closely with you on how do we find our path to something that sits in between those two numbers, but we want to be working in something that is real, because we're talking about, we're not talking about cutting, a couple $100,000 here. We're talking about massive amounts of money. And if we talk about things that are, close to $1 million, whatever, we need to be really certain of what that amount is so that we can be working towards it effectively with minimal impact to students, making sure that we're staffed appropriately for all of these new factors that are coming in to hit us next year, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why you're gonna see, that's why we've shown you, hey, we're recognizing level service. We can't do it. We know that. But we're also want to very transparently communicate to you that we absolutely can't do the minimum either. So we need some collaboration to figure out what does this look like together in consideration of all the other demands on our member towns.
So I don't know, okay, thank you. So what we did, we just didn't want to leave it completely kind of like, well, like, that's all I got for it, We did an exercise of like, okay, so in the entire district, the average salary is $71,950. It's the average salary. Top level. If you were to be able to do it in a way where that was the number you were looking to cut, although it does not add up that way, you'd have over 34 staff cuts to balance the budget, right? What we know is that that's not how it happens, right? People bump, right? This is a union shop, so it's, somebody making 40, somebody 50, whatever it might be. And so you're really talking about anywhere between 40, 50. I don't know. It'd be almost impossible to figure out. You'd have to figure out the bumps and all that. And there just wouldn't be enough. There wouldn't be enough adults to either supervise or teach students, right? That's what we know. So we gave. Oh, sorry, James.
And I just wanted to make a point too, plus in a scenario when you had mass layoffs, you also then need to subtract the unemployment cost of those savings.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and we didn't go that far, although we have to in the findings. Absolutely. So that's, so there's that. The considerations, of course, are all the things that everyone here considers, right? Degree of impact, instruction, district strategic plan goals, reduce the large, but if there was a number that this is what it would take. Sorry. So I threw the slide here. I think this is one of the few holdover slides. People liked it. This is the feedback I received. It just shows, where, how many of who, where they're funded and, how, so to speak. So when you do the math, it's 9 less than it was the year before, because that's, what it took, among other things, to get to the 884 that we cut last year, mostly from the middle school, to be quite frank, because that's where we had the ability, or it was just, I don't say the easiest, but it was most available to do that. And again, I put that in here because people, and it's transparent. It's transparent. And it actually generated a lot of questions like, well, what about Catholic? It did. So I put that up there. That's what it is. So what we do, so when this happens, inevitably I receive either Facebook messages, which are really cool, or texts or emails or whatever. And I say, well, Chris, the reason why this is all happening is you have some of the highest paid teachers. Now, literally, people have said you have some of the highest paid teachers and, administrators. I'll get to administrators in a minute. So I wanted to show what, because this is this year, by the way. This isn't like last year or anything like that. This isn't real. And so I collected, there's 11 districts up there, but 10 districts that we either our neighbors to, or when I say do business, that means we either lose staff to them or they're about the same size, right? So there they are. And so when you look at it, no matter how, and I don't know how familiar folks are with, you know, the teacher salary scale, there are lanes and there are requirement steps and there are lanes and all of that. So what I, just to keep it simple, is I said, so, okay, here's the lowest step, right, for bachelors. Although bachelors nowadays, you've only got 5 years to get off the bachelor's and get your master's, and then you have to get your master's within 5 years. That's how it goes, because you have to be highly qualified within 5 years. So they're not there long, to be very clear. And well, what do you do if somebody's been here a long time? Well, their grandfather, they're somewhere on the bachelor's, you know, scale, but anyone who's come in over the last, I don't know, you know, since ever form, they've only got a certain amount of time. So I went with lowest step, I went with step 5s that represents fairly the middle, right? And I went with the highest step on bachelor's, which I gotta tell you, that not a lot of people look at that because they're not gonna be there long, or they can't be there. That's the best way to put it. The master's schedule, right? Master's, again, is where everyone generates their attention, because they're looking at what it's going to be in X. And so when you look at that, you know, we're 7 out of 10, you know, in terms of the lowest step on the master's. Step 5 was, you know, we're holding, and the highest step, we're the lowest. So the feedback is that, you know, in general, it's been very hard to attract teachers, which we'll talk about that. There's a lot of reasons for that. But it's harder now to keep them, because they'll come aboard and they'll leave. Now, back 5 years ago, if you got a teacher over 3 years, yeah, because they had tenure, and no one was going to leave if they had tenure. No one was going to, or something, you know, some life circumstance, because you didn't want to go back down to the bottom of the pecking order if something should happen. Okay, everyone, you know, knew this. Well, education has changed, and so not a lot of the pipeline is not as full as it used to be. As everyone knows, people are very fluid, and they are moving, and they will move, and they will, you know, burden hand us, which we never used to have before, honestly. You know, like, oh my God, I'm so excited to work here. Oh my God, I'm so excited. You know, 3 days before school opens, I'm going to work in Ruthven Center. You know what I mean? And stuff like burden hand. So we used to have, we have a lot more of that now. People can do those type of things and people can just up and leave. And when I say leave, I mean people within 5, 6, 7, 8 years of experience. We need them. We need those people. They've got experience. They've been doing it a while. And so, okay. So this is what they look at when, you know, when they're looking and they're kind of kicking the tires here in Narragansett, as an example. Over the last 2 contract negotiation cycles, we've been able to make up some ground. We were traditionally, in contract cycle, talk 6 years ago, roughly 5 years ago, we were easily 8, 9 everywhere, 8, 9, 8, 9, 8, 9, 8, 9, whatever. And because it always kind of goes like this, because somebody else gets another contract and go like this, but we've never really been over 8 ever. And so we're holding steady there. So we're at least in the ballpark. So if you look at Winchendon, we're at 57.2. I'm looking at masters. I'm sorry, folks. Lowest step. Look, Winchendon is at 57.2, and 70 some odd bucks or less. You got Athol, Royalston. We're just maybe $100 behind them. So you see what I'm saying? So now now we can say, look, we're better because we like to think that anyway. We have a good thing going. People go, look, $70 to difference. Yeah, I definitely want to be. So now we're able to kind of keep our. All right. Next, always comes administration. So when who did that doing that? Get this slide from my fault. So this is by master, by high step. I'm sorry, I forgot that there were 2 slides here and I actually had written down. That's to kind of give you a close up. That's your master's highest step. That's where folks are looking. We have 11 steps at this point. I think it's 11 or 12. We have, right there, steps, 11. So we have fewer steps. Okay, that's good. That's good in a way, but all the other, not all, in this row, and everybody else has more. Yeah, you gotta do some more years, but there's still room for growth, right? So they're looking at that going, well, I could go to Gardner, and they got 15 steps, right? And that's gonna give me more, right? So again, that's, I throw that out there so, you're more familiar with it. But this is what folks are looking at when they are refining what they're coming in. Okay, so my spiel on administration is this: always. Chris, you talk to him. When people actually ask me that face to face, I say, wait, I'm not arguing with them. I just want to know where they think that we are top heavy. Seriously. So they say, you have more administrators than anyone. And so I go, well, I don't think so, but it depends on who you're talking about. So the last couple of years, I think, I just posted. I'm going to show you salaries here in a second, because eventually that's the next question. But here is what we upload to DESE when we do our EPIMS reporting. Okay, so I just want to show you. So there's the superintendent, there's the assistant superintendent. You need a business administrator. You've got we have an athletics director / dean, which does behavior between the middle and high school for both. We have a facilities director of 3. He's one of 3 for both, obviously, for all the buildings. Food service director, special ed director, and of course, you have a principal and vice principal for each of the 3 schools. Okay, so roughly 700 kids up at this end, and you've got 5, almost 6 down at the elementary. So in terms of like extra, I put that out there. I say, well, we are literally just kind of doing what everyone else is doing. And sometimes with less, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So salaries, every 2 years, I do a administrative salary, survey. So I call the superintendents around and go, can I have your admin salaries? No, why do? So I do it every 2 years, and it's good. And they actually like it too, because they can actually use it. So what I've done now, look, I do not have the food service director. Why? A lot of districts don't have them because they're in Chartwells, right? They've outsourced. We've actually talked to Chartwells. Said, Chartwells, would you come in here and see if you'd like to, manage us? And they're like, you're too small. So I didn't put the facilities director up there because some of these things just don't really match up. But in any event, what I have done is put, the main players up here. And I did all the districts that we are neighbors to, right? So Gansett, Gardner, Plauen, Ash West, Winchton, Athol, and Monty Tech. The green is the average, right? There's always a problem with averages. So no, I don't like averages, but I put it up there because people seem to feel comfortable with that. Median is where we need to go, right, Mr. Case, in terms of math. Median is the way to go. I know we talked about that a lot. We are either, we are under both. So when you look at these, and you look at, not in all categories. I believe our tech director makes more than the tech directors around. He's also been doing it for 20 years. But the fact is that the average, we are below average or the median in every one of these in these categories. This isn't a woe is me at all. But what I'm trying to do is not really get out ahead. Look, people may not like the fact that Casavan makes $187,000. They may hate that idea. James hates that idea. I don't want to talk about me because I don't want to bring anybody up. The fact of the matter is that there have been 15 superintendents all told in all those districts that have been here 10 years. And the most senior, I guess, superintendent, almost out past Littleton. There is no one, big circle, who's been a superintendent longer than me for quite a distance. I have outlived, 3 Gardner superintendents, 3 Quabbin superintendents, 3 Ash West. I don't know how many Winchton, you'd have to tell me, but it's a lot. I'm not, no shade, there's been a lot, I don't know. And I think 3 Monty Tech, right? And Athol, probably 5 or 6. The point is that I'm not sitting here complaining, it's just, we know our place. That has to be factored in as well. So when we hire people, obviously, they look at they may not have this, right, readily available, but they talk. So when building principals or assistant principals or whatever, they know what average is, or median, I hope. And so that's what they're looking for, all right? So I want to put this out there and give it to the world. I've done this, by the way, 3 or 4 times. I don't know how many times now, but it always comes up. It always comes up. So here it is, and fact check it, do whatever you gotta do, but that's where people are sitting in FY '26. It's possible for the district. We didn't notice there isn't 300 slides. Generally, we do have 300 slides, because anytime any one of you have asked a question and we've presented it, we've done a slide, we keep it updated and it's hidden, because at some point, somebody's going, remember that time I asked you? You can go, okay, Jeff, go on, we go find the slide from 1985, I mean, we can do what we can. So, and then we'll bring it, anybody else you'll have a hard copy of it though, and that's when I go, oh my God, he has the hard copy of it. So like, when this last slide though was the hardest to make, well, the last slide was the hardest to make, right? And it's what is possible for the district. Like, I wasn't gonna just get jazz hands and all whatever it's gonna take. We don't know, because this is the first time that I say, I don't, what does it look like, and how are they going to literally just staff the teachers that I need, in front of those kids? Straight up, we've already said that level service isn't gonna work, and we said that. I don't know what people are gonna think about that, but it is what it is. We're not fools. We understand what those numbers mean. What I'm saying is that what's really happened, and I'll keep saying it to my last day here, it would have all worked when we closed and we moved the kids over from Phillipston, and we cut all the teachers because population was going down. The report that was done to build the school, it had that, projection, and this little line was going, COVID happened, we had blown that projection out of the water by 200-300 kids easily. So I worry about that. I do, because we have a lot more resident kids in this district than we did, say, 7 years ago. By far, that's easy to, to show. I have the Baldwinville Elementary, apartments, which I'm not going to assign a number. I worry about that. But it is what it is, because anybody can move in. I just want to know, we want to know what is possible for the district. We want to be part of the plan. I said that last year at a meeting. I do. This can't be confrontational. James and I talked about this yesterday at nauseam yesterday. Like, look, we're gonna have to work together regardless. It's not going to be pretty at all. It's obvious, right? Obvious. I just don't want to, I don't want to go back there. And for those of you who've been here long enough, know exactly what I'm talking about. And so that's what I'm looking for, is what is possible for the district and how and where we go from here.
And I just want to add in that one of the things we're really in consideration of is we've seen the performance of students in our schools significantly improving over the last few years as, Templeton and Phillipston have invested in the district. And that is something that we're really, really proud of, and something we feel very protective of, because ensuring that students are set up for success is the core reason why we're all sitting around these tables. And so we know that we're going to have to figure out ways to mitigate the impact of whatever this budget scenario looks like on those students, and yet we also want to make sure that everybody knows that's something we're both proud of, because of the investments that were made, and also something that we're trying to protect as we go into this budget season, and we're trying to figure out collaboratively what those numbers need to look like.
That's all I got. You really want.
Questions?
Oh, what the heck? Might as well break into it. Just off the top of my head, and don't have the screens and so forth. But as we're talking a lot about basically personnel, payroll. I noticed on the slide that you had up with payroll listed in groups, that there's an 8.8% increase in costs. Yeah, right here. Second one down. Then for instructional. And the maintenance is the only one is like, 3.98. And administrative is 5.86. So I'm sure your average is, up there. But I'm just wondering, how did we get there? Is it added staff, or is it, added pay for the same staff?
So you're asking what contributed to the 8.8%
8.8% increase, yeah.
So combination of everything. So it's not just staff in that line, it's everything instructional, so all your paper, your supplies, and, there's no increases to their supply lines. When they get their raise, it's not just a straight COLA percent, because they all have steps. So the steps skew when you say, oh, they're getting a 2% raise, it's never just 2% because of the steps. So it's always more. There are some of our paras, we've had to increase paras based on IEP needs this year. I think we've increased 6 over last year. And our preschool paras are in our general fund, they were in preschool, because there's so many kids coming in on IEPs that come for free. The preschool revolving account cannot cover that, so it's all of those things.
That's the one that does 35% is paid, or can be the local under the IEPs for the preschool or.
If a child is deemed needing services under an IEP, then they need preschool services such as speech, physical therapy, whatever, there is no cost to that child, so the district has to.
It's taken from the free for or the paid for portion of the preschool or whatever.
So it would be, so that's what Anne Marie was saying. So normally, yes, normally that we are able to fund the things that the preschool needs from the costs to parents for the preschool tuition. Right, except we are now at a point where the IEP needs of the preschool are outpacing the tuition for the preschool as a whole. And so that is having to come out of the general fund, and that is, some of that is reflected in this 8.8% increase.
That's allowed for what, 35% of the preschool students, if I'm not mistaken. The state said it, that it's 35%.
You
Up
have
to-
to educate any child in preschool.
Right, but with the IEPs, they go from the paid for by the parents to the paid for by the general fund. I think that's 35% of the total population. No,
When you say 35%, are you talking about the special needs students or
of this, let's say 72 preschool students.
Okay, that's what you're saying, yeah.
So 35% of those that are brought in IEPs go to the general fund when they're put on IEPs rather than in the, personal pay for. So is that,
So it's a cost to the district,
Yeah.
right? The 30, any cost to the special needs student at all, it's a cost to the district, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. So, yes, I think that in when we're receiving, because it's interesting, we are seeing far more special needs students at the pre-K level than we ever have. That's bar none. So when I say back in the day, you pick a day, back in the day, it wasn't even close. So you'd have far more kids who were paying in, right? Because they wanted pre-K, so they'd be paying whatever the tuition is. And because there's a ratio and everyone knows. And so there, you'd have, the ratio is always the same. It's always the same, but we're finding that there are far more kids that we need to service. So that means we're having to create a part-time or full day or whatever the case is to give them the services that they need, because it's going to cost us double if we have to send them out, right? Many of the services we can handle. We can do that. Walk-in services, what we call it, right? Speech, OT, PT. But what's happening is that the level of need, or literally on their IEP, is we've seen a spike in autism, right? So that's not something that's walk-in service. I mean, I know that folks know that. I mean, for most, right? So it's like now we have to, it isn't just walk-in. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but you're right. The cost of those kiddos, that whatever that percentage is against the general fund. What we know is that if I have to educate them out, which I have to, FAPE, free and appropriate education, least restrictive environment, right? Two of the three major tenets of the federal law, IDEA, is that I'm going to have to send them out someplace and definitely transport them. I know that. So, we've had a lot of conversations about pre-K, and yeah, I mean, we're going to have to do some things differently just in terms of delivering services next year, regardless, because we have so many services to provide, which has not been the case, say say 10 years ago, I'll make up a number. Good job.
Well, the thing with preschool too is you don't know when kids are turning free
Until they show,
until they show up.
Yep.
So it could be any day,
right?
all year.
You can stop, like, so you don't have, so, there's only so many kiddos you can take, right? Because there's only so many, first off, hours in the day, there's the ratio, whether it's half day, full day, et cetera. We haven't hit the situation in which we'd have to say, no, sorry, we're full. We haven't had that situation. It could, and again, I don't even want to mention it, because then at that point, we've got to figure out, seriously, now that I've mentioned it. So then it's like an added cost on top of what we're already doing. So it's if you didn't care about anything else other than money, it's cheaper to get them to come for services here, as soon as possible, honestly. It really is. And you can do that research easily enough, looking at the very few programs that actually take kiddos who are 3 and 4. There aren't a lot of them. So.
Can you explain to me, because I've just never understood it, how school choice financially benefits the district?
Yes, I do.
Because every time I look at it, it's like, isn't it costing us more?
I wasn't here. I'm not sure. No, because I'm going to assume that the numbers had to be, you had to keep a healthy budget because of 2 reoccurring always costs that were going to come out of that line, right? Health insurance, which is, we are so lucky we got out of it when we did, because we'd already be upside down, right? And those staff members. So my point is that that's how it benefits the district. If the staff were out of school choice, okay, then I would say to you that the weight is all like few, right? Because then that's more important than almost anything else. Then it would benefit the district by purchasing curriculum items and stuff like that. So we don't have to pass off to the towns. It becomes unbelievably important to keep that number up because of the staff. Go ahead.
I think
we're
it's
not-
asking that centrally, right?
That is not my question.
Okay.
No, it's so if it costs, the way I look at school choice, which is probably the wrong way, okay? But when I look at school choice, I'm looking at it as the district already has and I'm just making up numbers here, has a classroom size with resident students of 20, right? And the teacher can take on another 3 students. It's not costing salary, anything else for the district to accept 3 more students, right? Because it's not costing anymore. But the way it's set up right now, you've got these 9 teachers in this other category, right? That is, it doesn't make financial sense to me, because if we only get $5,000 coming in and it costs us, what is it? I have the number written down, $15,000 to educate a child, I feel like we're upside down by $10,000 per child we take in.
So, I'm hopeful that we are absolutely saying the same thing. If those 2 I'm gonna leave insurance out of it because it's gone now. It's gone. If those teachers are in there, no, if the teachers are not coming out of that fund, out of school choice revolving, you wouldn't need to take any school choice kids in essence. I don't know how else to explain it, right?
But
Yeah.
I think what.
Maybe I'm-
Give it a try.
You could try.
I can try. Okay, so foundationally, school choice conceptually, you're right. We get less money per student that comes into our district, but we do also have to pay money out if a student leaves our district, right? Because school choice is available in many schools in Massachusetts. We were talking in our last meeting that there's actually schools that surround us that have been held harmless for many years who actually have open houses to try to attract students to them. And so we never want to be in a situation where even if we didn't accepted no school choice students into our district, We never want to be in a situation where we're sending lots of, where kids are selecting to go to other schools and we're having to pay lots of money out without having any balancing funds coming in. Because if we were to have no school choice students coming in at all, we'd be out of balance with the school choice students choosing to go out.
And you can't stop school choice out.
Right, and you have no control over school choice out. Anyone can school choice out if they want to.
Can I just take a stab at it now?
Yes.
Okay,
It costs us 15,000. We only get 5,000 in.
Yeah.
Why are we giving away 10 grand?
That is like the perfect answer, and you're absolutely right, like, when you look at it like that, it's not worth it for us to take them in. But we try to offset, and how they make us do school choice, in my opinion, is ridiculous. They make us take the kids, which is the expense, the ones that are leaving the district, they take the expense, and we have to charge the expense of them leaving against the general fund. The revenue that comes in for the kids that we take in has to go into a revolving fund. So it doesn't like cross. So it's very hard, like you try to use your revolving fund money with what's coming in for like those one-time things. But like you said, we end up, because of those 9 teachers that are left in there, that's why we're still trying to take them in to cover that. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't make it. But you're not gonna stop the expense on the general fund side, so you're just trying to recoup some funds any way you can by taking them in.
Could I add something here too? If I'm hearing all this correctly, if we took all the teachers out and that wasn't the case and all things were equal, it would be better to send kids out and not receive any. Because we get $10,000 for kids to go and teach.
You definitely argue that, yes, because you're going to get,
Not
you get the spending come in, okay, but overall, you're absolutely correct, your standard kid going to school choice someplace else was $15,000 a kid, you just saw that. So you know what, yeah, we're gonna pay out 5 to wherever, give or take, and then we're gonna keep 10. So absolutely, and I guess I'm speaking from a different thing, I think this wouldn't be such a big deal, I wouldn't be chasing this number so drastically if it wasn't for these 9 teachers, that they're being taken out of it. You know what I mean? But that, from my point of view, that's where I was coming from. It's like, I've got to, because I need them, but I got you.
Can't you just take the hit over 1 to 3 years to get everybody out of there? Because I honestly don't, I understand it's a funding thing and it's where the financials are and everything else.
So
But
I guess,
Can you bring up the one that shows the slide that shows the school choice in and out?
but I guess in a world where last year we had to cut, 8 positions?
Yes.
How would we have moved, any of those 9 positions? Now, what we are doing to be responsible is we try to keep some of our lower salary.
All the lowers, yes.
Yeah, we don't have to keep the same people there.
Yeah.
It's not the same people, it's different salaries, so we try to keep our lower salaries coming out of there. But in a world where we've been, especially last year, cutting positions, or in the world before that, where we critically needed to add positions in order to staff the school appropriately for the number of kids that had come in, there hasn't been an opportunity. We've moved insurance on priority out of there because that was an irresponsible cost. We agree that we want to move out those 9, but the challenge is we haven't had a moment where we could do that, where that has been an available option for us, because in the process of negotiating with our member towns to figure out, okay, well, how much money can you give us? It's never covered moving a teacher into the general fund. That would we love to be in that position this year? Sure, but that would increase the 3.2 million level service to even more than that. So if you took those 9 salaries out, we'd be adding even more to that situation.
I don't see how you would. It's a matter of you're just moving money from one fund to another. And maybe I just don't understand school finance.
No, the general fund is all we're charging you, quote unquote, right? So whatever the general fund is, that's what we're charging our member towns, right? 85.15, whatever it says. Those 9 teachers that we keep talking about sit outside of it, right? So we're not obligating the towns, again, to pay directly for those 9 teachers. It's $800,000 roughly, give or take, right, for those teachers. So because that's outside of here. Now, for us to move all those teachers in, I'd be saying, oh, by the way, I need $800,000 more, right? You know what I mean? Because those teachers are now on the general side. It's now, we're charging for those. I'm using.
I think she's asking if we can move things in the general fund over to school choice.
No, I'm saying more, move the money from, so what I'm trying to say is, even though, you're looking at it from at least I think, you're looking at it from the perspective of, you're not charging the towns for those 9 teachers. In essence, you're charging the towns $10,000 per student that is being funded by those 9 students, by those 9 with those 9 teachers. Because it's costing us $10,000 more than what we get in to educate those kids.
Well,
So, it's like, you've got to fund over here, you've got to fund over here, right? When the money comes in for the school choice kids that you have, right? Does it have to legally go into this other account?
has to go to the revolving.
It has to go into revolving.
It does.
And can you legally take it out of revolving and put it in the general fund?
You can't increase the general fund. You can't increase the general fund.
There's got to be a way of fixing this because
So let me tell you, Liz.
it's a fact of life.
I would think this, you want to talk about, sitting privately, the year that we had the most students that came in, I forget what it was, 100, it was 100 plus. We're like, oh my God. And it was the year after we were out of health harmless for the very first time ever. We tell the joke that we actually called the Department of Ed, said, you made a mistake. You gave us $650,000 in Chapter 70. He said, no, we didn't. You guys are finally out of health harmless. We're like, oh my God. Well, the following year, call it $1 million. I don't remember the exact amount. We're sitting, it was 1.2 million sitting in chapter 78. I'm like, we could, now that's in the general, that's there. I'm like, oh my God. What we did with that ultimately is we moved insurance out. So, because there was the $1 million sitting there, give or take, I don't know. And so we made the decision, was just like, oh my God, we could have done like all these other things, but we knew that we had to take the insurance out. It had to be done. We've always said that, and again, the school committee ultimately makes the decision, but if we ever got that opportunity again, I'm telling you, the very first thing I'm going to say is we've got to do this. We've got to, because that money will live there, right? That money will be the general, right? Once they give it to you, allegedly, they don't take it back. At least during the daylight hours anyway. And so they get it back. But you know what I'm saying? If we ever got that amount again, we'd be like, finally, because we are constantly chasing something we shouldn't be chasing. Right? And I mean that. Yeah. We're chasing this. We don't want to. We don't want to. And actually, she's done a great job moving out people, because remember, when we're switching people in and out, so I'm gonna make up a number, I'm moving in a $50,000 teacher, right? And I'm moving out, making it up, $70,000 teacher is not in there, but you get it. So now I've just increased, right? The general fund, I've just increased it, but I can't keep pulling from this, because this fund is going down, school choice is going down too quickly. So it's a dangerous game. We don't want to chase it. We don't, but right now that's where we're at.
Thank you for your questions.
No, I mean, please, these are great questions to ask because you are not the only person with that question. And so I'd rather spend more time at the table, around the table, trying to help everybody kind of understand, because understanding school choice revolving is a really, really hard thing. And I tell everyone that comes into school committee, like, keep asking the questions, because understanding the way that school finances are done, sometimes you feel like you're having to turn yourself upside down and backwards to try to figure out why they make the monies move a certain way. So thank you for keeping asking the question until you felt like you had a better understanding. I appreciate it, actually. Other questions? Yes.
So you mentioned that your staff turnover rates got better, so your teachers staying longer now? Is that what you said earlier?
The last couple of years they have not. So this would be last year we had 3 positions we could not fill. I don't know how many times we posted, but we did. Thankfully, 2 folks came out of retirement that worked for us and they worked here for a bit. Okay, and that saved us. This year, we have two. We have 2 positions that we keep posting and we're not filling. I don't think I really don't think it's against the bang or anything like that. It's just that one, if those teachers were looking for jobs back, they were gonna go with the highest bidder anyway, okay, right? But there's just not a lot of teachers out there. We understand that we're not gonna be, I think the highest, I think it was Montague, if memory serves, I think they were number 1 in all categories. Look, if they're gonna educate, that's where they're gonna try to go, and if not, they're gonna keep going 2, 3, 4, whatever, whatever the districts are. The staff that we have over 10 years here, they run this place. They're the reason why we are. But next year, we know we're going to see, starting next year is going to be, not much of a trickle. I think it's going to be lumps of people are going to retire. That's when we're really going to know.
Let's say it sounds like because of the turnover, you probably have a big percentage of the staff that is still working the steps and the lanes.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine that over the
How would you describe turnover rate versus open positions?
I feel like it's slowed down a little bit this year. We always lose someone like the day before school starts. We did not this year. So I'm hoping that that's a trend and maybe they feel a little more secure and they wanna stick around. I don't know, and it's not just teachers. We go through paraprofessionals and cafeteria workers like water. I don't know if they just think it's an easy job, I can do it, it's the same schedule as my kids, and they get here and they find out, oh, wow, this isn't quite what I thought. But I feel like even this year, the past like 6 months since school started, those people that have been hired are lasting longer. So I don't know if they're just, they have other scenarios where they were making money and that's not available and they have to have this. I don't know, but it feels a lot better when the paperwork's not coming to your desk every single day from a new hire.
When we sit with the unions, we are told that we have a good reputation locally, that our school is seen as a place that people want to work. And certainly that helps. It also helps that we've moved out of the very bottom of the local salary scale, and we're not quite at the middle, but we're better than we were. But what we're keeping an eye on is, depending on, how things go this year, we certainly wouldn't want to then suddenly put ourselves back in a position where we're seeing a turnover not because of our reputation issue, but because folks are not getting compensated at the same rates that they can find at any other local schools that they can drive to. Because we are in a space where folks can drive 20 minutes and arrive at another school in multiple directions. So
People have come back. So the best thing I can say to you, honestly, it's a great feeling when folks have left. Not when they leave, that's not good. But when they come back and they say, you know what, I was so-and-so place and now I come back, and that is, things are better, that's a good thing to hear, not.
is there
Oh, no, so I was impressed by the fact that you only have 11 steps. I haven't seen your contract yet, I was expecting 13, 14, 15. I know the towns do, but
Yeah.
having this sort of staff, so I guess my point that I was kind of getting to was that having a staff now where retention might be getting better, for a while, you're gonna have people going through the steps and lanes, plus when you renegotiate the contract, they'll get a COLA and all of those will be adjusted as well.
Yeah.
So for the next few years, that'll be a building number, but
We've just simply, we've just taken away the bottom step on a couple of occasions because it was just too low. It was just literally, it was pathetically low. So those over the years, we've had to slowly do this. We just can't wreck the plate. We just can't, do it all in one fell swoop. It's just not with too many. We know what our responsibility is, but you're right. They're going to be working their way through and I think it'll ease a bit. Right now, probably the majority of the teachers are sitting at right? Because they've been here the longest.
it'd be nice if they're all on 11 years.
Right, yeah, but if they're all at 11 years, look, then they wanted to stay here, and now they're invested, right? So now, hopefully, do better for a while.
Has there been, less need for like hiring out third party, like OT, PT speech, like, I knew there was a shortage in therapists. I don't know if like, did a bunch graduate, or are we still having that type of problem?
So we made a vow.
We repurposed
Yeah.
one of our BCBA's into a speech teacher because we just had so many IEPs that needed speech. So
Yeah.
we did that this year, which helped because last year we were down a position, a woman had left. We couldn't fill her position, so we had contractors. So we were able to fill her position, and then by repurposing one of the BCBA's into speech, we have a pretty good handle on the caseloads this year.
Okay, that's good, because I know that that's a common complaint of school districts, that the money they have to pay third parties, so.
We're trying to avoid that
Oh, everybody is, I'm sure.
everywhere that we
Yeah.
can, but if an IEP comes in and requires a service.
Right.
If we can't fulfill through staffing, then we are left with no choice, because we're federally obligated to make sure that that student is educated in the way that they need to be.
You've done the comparison over the salaries. Have you done the comparison over the benefits?
Yeah, that's, you know what, I didn't want to add 1,000 slot, I really didn't.
No.
But yes, we've, in some ways, for example, all those districts, I think, it's 183 days for our teachers. I think that's on when I say the lower end, there's a couple with 130, but there's a couple 84, 185. So, I mean, that's something. Our insurance is, the breakdown is 75, 25. That we're starting to see in other districts, at least, when we look at this, that is starting to be bargained lower, right? So maybe, I'm not 60-40, but whatever it may be, to kind of ease on the side of the district. Personal days, sick days are generally the same all across the board. Professional development days, again, those aren't benefits, but the insurance costs are hard, they're high everywhere, right? Then it breaks down to, well, how much is the district, i.e. general fund, going to take in, or take on, I should say, not take in. That's gonna have to be something that is, looked at. I think that would be the biggest.
The only thing I note there is that while all those things are possible, they're not necessarily quick fixes, because for things like that, they require going back to the bargaining table, just like changes in salary scales, but.
I wasn't looking at it from the perspective of changing the.
Okay, yeah.
Part. I was more looking at it from the whole compensation package for an individual. Because when you're looking at it, it's not just the salary, it's like, oh, I'm paying X amount less or X amount more for my insurance that comes into play. And while we're on the insurance conversation, I don't know if this is legally possible. Has there been, and I don't know who to address this to, any conversations about the district and Templeton? Because I think everybody uses the same group.
Yeah, and
Mr. Rand?
yes, there has been. And,
Okay.
So, and I normally us and Bleachington, that's fine for me to say, but, everything's kind of stalled because now we're looking at budgets and now we're getting health insurance numbers coming. But that is a topic of conversation, because if we were to blend claims at the local level, the larger the towns with, blend claims as a group on what we call the local level, we do share stop loss insurance. I won't go into the details, but we share a stop loss insurance. If we were to blend claims at the local level, so Templeton joins with Narragansett and maybe Winchendon or whoever, that bigger pool can protect us from larger increases. So when one of, let's say, the three groups are having a bad claims year, the other two pick it up and vice versa. It's just like buying in bulk type of thing. It's easy to absorb that stuff. And so we have been having those talks. And I guess to the district's point too, still maintaining the 75-25 split. As you mentioned, that would be something we'd have to bargain. And there's gonna be a cost to bargaining it, because they'll never give it up for free. And then if you were to somehow force it in, and as we saw on the chart, and you're only paying, if I could say, probably low middle of the pack, and then you change their next probably biggest benefit. Now you're making the benefit a little worse and the salary is well nil. So that could be a disincentive to work for the district.
Yes.
One last question from me, and it's more just general opened up. Over the last few years, I've noticed a, say, greater separation between, what, let's say, would be reasonable with the town's budget compared to what is being asked for by the school budget for their needs. And I don't see that changing. You know, it's like last year, you know, drew back 884,000 that you requested. This year, you know, you're looking at 3.2, and I can tell you right now, we don't have it. And I'll just speak for, you know, but my question is, what are we doing to adjust so that this trajectory doesn't continue? Because, you know, then we're just gonna be cutting bigger and bigger numbers, and it's has the potential of, you know, if, you know, the town side being wrecked or the school side being wrecked, or both. Because these aren't small numbers, you know, 3.2 is pretty much, you know, a large percentage of our entire payroll for the town.
Right. What we've done, what we're trying to do, again, going back, is that when we made the initial cuts, I think that it, you know, it kind of reset, everything kind of reset, I think, back. So when we cut the, I think it was $1 million back, I don't remember exactly, 1.1. What has thrown us, Bob, and you're right, is that we've, you know, we have so many more kids than we had. And so, you know, we had to add back, we wanted to, but we had to add back all those elementary teachers that we literally cut because of the budget deficit the year before. It's the sheer number of kids. So I would say, and I'm not being combative, right? Is that what are we doing to maybe slow the roll with all these houses coming in, because it's happening too quick. I have X amount, again, I'm not being combative. I mean it. Because we're only receiving the kids. We find out that, right, that this year they went down, okay, right? So, phew, but a lot of those kids were school choice kids. I mean, is even more than the residents, right? Because we had a large class. So, you know, what we're trying to do is lower, you know, the class sizes, right? Because we have so many residents, right? We only have 7 school choice kids in all of the elementary school. 7. I mean, out of 5, almost 600 kids. So it's not like we're packing them in there, you know, but the kids are coming. So Bob, it's really the only way I know, because we're staff intensive. Yes, there's through bargaining and there's those type of things. But truthfully, you know, put in perspective. So I looked at where we were supposed to be when they did the MSBA looked at the new building. They did the projections, and it was kind of interesting to see where they projected. They did it in 2015, so those numbers we can check, and where those numbers are supposed to be in 25. Do you realize? I did not realize this until I did the math the other day. The elementary school, as you know, is supposed to have the 5th grade. Okay. If you took only residents, Templeton residents, and you added all the residents from the 5th grade, 4th grade, all the way down, right? And you got to bring the 4 teachers that are here. You got to bring them because you got kids, right? You would be over occupancy just with residents. I got to tell you, I had not checked that before until just a week ago. They missed. Now, granted, everything was supposed to go like this. It didn't. So, Bob, we can't help the kids. They're coming. We like them. We love them. We do. I don't even mean it as a joke. Don't come here. But we're trying to lower, you know, we're trying to keep those classes, you know, so we're not taking as many school choice kids in, right? We're not doing, you know, that to go, well, we need another teacher. Look, it's 29, 30. No, they're going to be 29, 30 all by themselves, just with residents. So yeah, through all those things, we're trying. It would have, I think, like I've said, the plan worked. Would have worked, but all of a sudden, boom, we're the next destination place. And so I do turn it back, go, I can't help the kids that are walking through the door. And by the way, they're not liking it, right? So what I mean is when I see school choice out, right? Okay, yeah, granted, we're still gonna get 10 grand, which, okay, but I want 15, to be honest with you. So when I see that number keep going down, I'm like, okay, good. I mean, that's good. We want kids to, not school choice out. But so I don't know, Bob. We're trying, like, we're really like trying to figure it out, but they just keep coming, so.
Yeah, and like you didn't want to talk about the place over there. Well, from just the discussion that I had with Phillips, and I have the numbers at home, I don't have them yet. But, we got about the same amount in housing places. Bedrooms from single family houses between Phillipston and Templeton as that place we don't want to talk about.
Right.
So double that problem.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about before, real estate taxes don't pay school.
You'll never balance the budget on
No.
real estate tax, right?
Because, you got an average $4,000 or whatever
Yeah.
real estate tax in town, and
Yeah.
16% of all the people are kids.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, my daughter does gymnastics and we travel around to a lot of high schools in other towns. And my husband will always say when we arrive in the twins, he's like, how are they affording this? 'Cause they have tennis courts and some have a pool and some crazy things. And I go, there's a business, and not small businesses, which I love our town. I love our small businesses. But these are towns that have, Raytheon in them, et cetera. And so, yes, that's, folks keep asking me this question of like, well, our taxes are increasing. Why isn't that sufficient? I'm like, because real estate taxes will never balance out school budgets, because if the number of kids, the number of kids is outpacing what a real estate tax can pay for.
yeah, I'm pretty sure our entire real estate collections in Templeton are about half of what your budget proposes to be. A little, yeah. So,
Sure. So, we're trying, we are, that's why you don't see me going, all right, come on in, school choice, or something, we're not doing that, we're not. And, we're open, right, we need to have the conversation, we're trying to figure it out.
I saw your question.
So I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly. When you did the numbers, bringing fifth grade back to Templeton Elementary, was that Templeton only residents?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
okay, because,
And by the way, that's with the low kindergarten class, so I just took it like today, oh, they're all going back, I just pretended and just added them across. And then I looked at Anne Marie and go, we're over occupancy now. Like, not granted, when VES was the school, that was way over. I mean, you want to talk, if someone's gonna try to tell me that meant occupancy, I'm gonna question it. I mean, it was there, that's why we had to build the school, right? Because they're all, so, but again, I couldn't believe it when I did the math of it. I really just never went to look at it. I'm like, we'd be talking the same way,
so you have you had the question of, where do we go from here? Any bright ideas that doesn't revolve around $3 million increase?
So what I want to be clear of is the reason that we didn't put a number out there is because we want this to be a collaborative
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
we're trying to understand, like, the next item on the budget, thank you very much for.
Finance meeting.
No, of course, thank you. The next item on the budget is the budget outlook for the towns. Phillipston was next, but we'll go to Templeton. And trying to better understand what is happening in your world. We know there's lots of services in the towns. And so what we're trying to say is not, here's exactly what we're asking for, but rather to say, can we make this a collaborative conversation to figure out what are your plans going into FY 27 such that we are then building a budget that is supportive of those plans, and figuring that out together and openly communicating that if your plan is, the minimal percentage, we're in a world of hurt. We're in trouble. Like we're in actual trouble. So we know that it needs to be somewhere between those two, but rather than, and don't worry, like if that's what we have to do, if we have to come up with a number and you guys can't, give us some directional information, we'll do that. Of course we will. We always do. We just didn't want to start off that way. We wanted to say, let's sit around this table together, recognize it's a problem we all need to solve, and better understand what your world looks like before we start, slashing out line items, because we want to make sure we're making the best decision for our school and our students.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
Quick comment, Mr. Mason will get a kick out of this. Dr. Cassavant, to your point about where we're at and buildings over capacity.
Sure.
I think back in the day when we had the East Templeton Elementary and the Otter River School, we were probably over capacity with all the buildings up and running. And I see Mr. Mason sitting there quietly shaking his head up and down.
When I was a kid, we had Templeton Center.
Yep.
Baldwinville, East Templeton,
No,
and Otter River.
Yeah. Yep.
And I graduated with a class of 132.
I went back in the, in all classes, I was looking at graduating classes, not just in yearbooks, but just looking through. And I was honestly shocked to see how big the classes were. It just given the difference, but I'm also shocked because when I first got here, graduating classes were 50 and 60, now they're 90, right? And we have a couple hundred sprinkled in there. I'm not saying we have 100, but we have the high 80s. So that happened, it literally happened over, it seemed like overnight. So we're not at 132 for gosh sakes, but you can see the graduating classes down from where it was.
See the grade 7.
Grade 7, I'm gonna tell you, grade 7, I don't know what happened, but grade 7 might.
Just a quick comment though, the closing slide you had, where does the district go? And we all had the year, we all stayed home, and I think we got hit with a trifecta that none of us wanted to have. And Dr. Cassavant, I think you said it best. If we ever had the choice to do this again, we would not keep the kids at home. I'm with you. When I was teaching at the college level and the collegiate level, that was the worst thing we ever did for any of our students. Mr. Case over there is laughing because I know he's also at the collegiate level. So we had those challenges. And then we had the ARPA funds that got tossed on us, and then the ESSER funds that came down from the Federal Department of Education. Those came into the town, and I kind of took that and ran lead on it. And it was a no-brainer for the towns to accept it and hand it off to the school district. But I also remember sitting at a town meeting and giving the stern caution that we needed to really pay attention how we did this, because it was going to cause us a great divide and a potential financial cliff. And then we got the first tranche, and then the second tranche, and the third, the ESSER 1, 2, 3. And I think now, 3 and 4 years after the fact, we're seeing that effect. Because we've looked at $700,000-800,000 million increases year after year after year, and now here we are. How do we fix it? And I don't want to point fingers, say, I told you so, but gosh darn it, I kind of predicted this one. And reading through all those stacks of papers that kept me up for hours at night, it's like it's coming to fruition. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the group that's going to have to fix it.
Agreed.
So thank you for giving us the time to talk and to ask us great questions. Is there anything you can share with us in this moment? I know we have a chairs meeting on the schedule to make sure that we're having another check-in point before we have our official budget presentations, but is there anything that's happening in your planning, in your conversations that you can share with us? So that between now and that chairs meeting, and I'm sure we'll touch base, but between now and that chairs meeting, we can start to prep towards an actual official like budget proposal. Or anything that can help us directionally understand plans for FY27. And it's okay if the answer is no. Let me put on the freedom that if the answer is no, that is okay. You know, this is a very complicated year.
Like Bob and Liz keep looking at me, so I'm gonna say something. So right now in our budget presentation, the select board's gonna have a more formal presentation on the 23rd, then we have our department heads coming in on the 7th, advisory will be there as well, and then the select board have a couple meetings to decide what they want to do. So right now, it's still very preliminary for me. I'm still working on direct and indirect costs. With our enterprise funds, I'm waiting for a set of numbers that should come in any day now from the retirement system, so I know what to assess. But I have plugged in very rough estimates of the things that I don't have exact yet. One of them being the number that Dr. Cassavant gave me, which is only 2.5% above last year, correct? And we know after this conversation that that is not going to be feasible. So again, what I'm seeing is subject to change. And I can tell you that in no great way are the department heads on the town side asking for any special things, you know. As of right now, there are no new staff at town hall, for example, no news at the library, some other ones. And again, I'm just gonna reiterate again, that we're at a very preliminary stage, but even with that school number of 2.5%, we have over a $2 million deficit when I add it all up. Our new growth, the assessors have told me not to budget more than $60,000. To give you perspective, the town of Salisbury, where I was for many years, a fairly similar sized community. Granted, there's plenty of differences, but similar sized community. They have new growth of 600,000. Now, 200,000 were because of a special development, but they still would have had 400,000. And that's not, you know, the only thing that, you know, hurts us. And I'm budgeting revenues very conservatively. That's the best practice. I can share that. And I think members here probably know some of the revenues last year were a little generous. But I'm going to follow the best practices until you know, we decide kind of what direction we're going in. But it's over $2 million that we have to come up with, and that's where we are. I don't want to assume I know the solution. I think our health insurance number will get a little better. I think Mass Strategic's about to make a decision that will drop what is probably a 19% down to a 15%. I can't believe I'm living in a world where I'm going, yay, 15%. But when you were told 20%, or maybe even at one point they were worried it was going to be 30%. 15 sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
But again, that's, you know, not a small piece. It's not a small piece of our budget, but it's only, you know, a piece. And so we're in the same boat altogether. That there's not a lot of options, and math is math, like, you know.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. That is contextually helpful for us to understand where things are in this moment. And you know, the chat, we knew that you'd all be looking at challenges the same as us, and we're all set in the same towns here. But you know, it is helpful for us to directionally have information so that as we're putting together plans, that we have that top of mind. So, yeah. Anything else that anyone wants to share or is ready to share? And it's okay. Again, the answer is no. Thank you, James. All right. On that note, then, I would say there's no new business to cover this evening. I think we've covered an awful lot. And so, we'll take turns adjourning, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the school committee.
Second.
Motion by Sean, motion by Sean and second by Hank. All in favor?
I motion, I entertain a motion to adjourn the advisory committee.
So moved.
Second by Noel. But Liz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Noel, how do you vote? House vote yes, we are adjourned.
Motion to adjourn, Selectwood.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 19.